There are moments in life when the road stretches long and lonesome before us. The world hums with its hurried footsteps, but we find ourselves moving at a different rhythm. A rhythm not dictated by the noise of the crowd, but by the still, small voice within. To walk alone with God every day is not a path of isolation, but a journey of deep companionship, a walk where silence speaks louder than words and presence carries more weight than the approval of men. It is not always easy. The winds will howl, and the storms will rise, and the voices of the world will call out, beckoning, questioning, tempting. Yet, there is a power in walking alone with Him, a power that steadies the trembling heart, strengthens the weary soul, and makes the lonely road feel like sacred ground. But how does one walk such a path? How does one step away from the fleeting comforts of the world and into the eternal embrace of the unseen? The night was thick with shadows, the kind that crept along the edges of the mind, whispering doubt and fear. The path was narrow, winding through valleys of questions, over hills of uncertainty. The world behind me buzzed with noise, voices filled with urgency, with insistence, with the need to be heard. But ahead there was only silence, a hush that felt at once heavy and holy. And in that stillness I knew I was not alone. To walk alone with God every day is not to be without company, but to be in the presence of the one who needs no introduction. It is a conversation that begins in the morning when the first breath of light kisses the horizon, and it does not end when the sun bows its head beneath the weight of the night. It is a journey not measured in miles, but in faith, not counted in steps, but in surrender. It is easy to walk with the world, to let its rhythms dictate our days, to let its voices shape our thoughts. The world is loud. It promises much and delivers little. It tells you that your worth is in the hands of men, that your joy is tethered to their approval, that your purpose is written in their acceptance. And yet, the deeper one walks into the heart of the divine, the clearer it becomes no man can give what only God can provide. The path is not without its trials. The world will not understand. They will question why you do not seek their applause, why you do not run when they run, why your eyes do not wander where theirs do. And there will be days when the silence feels too vast, when the weight of the unseen feels too great. Doubt will knock at your door wearing the face of reason, dressed in the garments of logic. It will whisper that faith is foolish, that trust is a gamble, that solitude is sorrow. But in the quiet, there is a voice that does not waver, a presence that does not shift with the wind. It does not demand, it does not clamor, it simply waits. It waits in the hush of the morning, in the sacred pauses of the day, in the hush before the world wakes. It is there in the opening of the scriptures, in the lifting of a weary heart, in the whispered prayers of the unseen places. To walk alone with God is to step away from the need to be understood and into the assurance of being known. It is to wake with a song in your spirit that no one else hears, to carry a light that is unseen by the world but unmistakable in the darkness. It is to choose faith over sight, trust over proof, surrender over control. There will be moments when the weight of the journey presses heavy upon your shoulders, when the loneliness feels thick, when the path feels unclear. The world will offer its distractions, its fleeting comforts, its hollow reassurances. It will tell you that you are missing out, that you are walking away from everything that matters. But there is a truth that the world cannot comprehend. The closer you walk with God, the less you need from the world. The more you listen to His voice, the quieter the voices of the world become. Faith is not built in the noise. It is forged in the silence. It is not strengthened in the crowd. It is deepened in the solitude. The giants of faith did not become who they were because they followed the multitude, but because they walked alone, because they listened when others ignored, because they believed when others doubted. The road will not always be easy. There will be moments of struggle, moments of wrestling, moments of wondering if the silence is empty or if it is full of something too vast to be understood. But every step forward is a step deeper, a step closer, a step stronger. And with every step, the heart learns this is not loneliness. This is presence. This is not emptiness. This is fullness. This is not abandonment. This is communion. The world will not understand, but it does not need to. The path was never meant for them. It was meant for you. It was carved by unseen hands, laid with unseen purpose, destined for unseen glory. And though the road may wend and twist, though the journey may stretch long, one thing is certain: those who walk alone with Him never truly walk alone. The road stretches onward, winding through the unseen, shaped by hands that have carved paths through eternity. It is not a journey measured by the ticking of clocks or the turning of seasons, but by the quiet transformation of the soul. To walk alone with God every day is not to merely exist in solitude, but to be wrapped in the kind of presence that fills even the emptiest spaces. It is a walk that begins in surrender and deepens in trust, a journey where the feet grow weary, yet the spirit finds rest. The world is a restless place filled with distractions that masquerade as purpose, with noise that drowns out truth, with movement that leads nowhere. It tells you that your steps must be hurried, that your days must be filled, that your mind must be occupied at all times. But there is a stillness that does not come from the absence of movement, but from the presence of peace. A stillness that whispers when the world shouts, that steadies when the ground beneath you shakes, that anchors when the tides pull strong. It is in that stillness that the presence of God is found, in that quiet where his voice is heard, in that solitude where his hand is felt. There will be days when the silence feels deafening, when the loneliness presses in, when the weight of unseen steps feels too much to bear. Doubt will come wearing the face of logic, cloaked in the garments of reason. It will ask why you choose to walk this path when the world offers an easier way, why you persist in faith when certainty is nowhere in sight, why you choose trust when control seems more secure. And in those moments, when the questions rise and the uncertainty lingers, there will be a choice to make, to step forward into the unseen or to turn back toward the familiar. Faith is not built in the comfort of certainty, but in the risk of trust. It is not sustained by what the eyes can see, but by what the heart knows to be true. Those who have walked this road before, those whose names are etched into the fabric of eternity, did not walk it because it was easy, but because they knew there was no other way. They walked through deserts and wildernesses, through valleys of doubt and mountains of opposition. They faced storms that threatened to tear them apart, trials that tested their endurance, losses that could have broken them. But through it all, they walked on. There is a cost to walking alone with God, a price that must be paid, a sacrifice that must be made. The world will not applaud, for it does not understand. It values what is seen, what is tangible, what is measurable. It seeks validation in numbers, in achievements, in recognition. But the things of God are often hidden, their value not in their visibility, but in their depth. A seed buried beneath the soil looks like nothing to the passing eye, but beneath the surface, it is growing, stretching, preparing to break through. So it is with faith. It grows in the unseen, it deepens in the quiet, it strengthens in the waiting. The journey will not always make sense. There will be moments when the road ahead seems unclear, when the next step feels uncertain, when the silence feels too vast. The temptation will come to forge your own path, to take matters into your own hands, to create your own way forward. But the walk of faith is not one of control, it is one of surrender. It is not about knowing every step before it is taken, but trusting that the one who leads knows the way. There will be times when the presence of God feels distant, when the prayers seem to echo into nothingness, when the waiting feels unbearable. It is in those moments that faith is tested, that trust is refined, that endurance is built. To walk alone with God is to learn the art of waiting, not waiting in frustration or impatience, but waiting in expectation, in hope, in quiet assurance. It is to believe that even in the silence he is working, that even in the stillness he is moving, that even when nothing seems to be changing, something deep within is being transformed. The world will tell you that you need proof before you believe, that you need evidence before you trust, that you need certainty before you step. But faith does not wait for proof, it moves in the absence of it. It steps into the unknown, not because it sees, but because it knows. It walks forward, not because the path is clear, but because the one who calls is trustworthy. There will be moments of doubt, of weakness, of weariness. There will be days when the journey feels long, when the weight feels too much to carry, when the silence feels unending. But those who walk with God do not walk in vain. They do not wander aimlessly. They do not move without purpose. Every step, though unseen by the world, is seen by him. Every prayer, though unheard by others, is heard by him. Every tear, though hidden from sight, is held by him. To walk alone with God is to walk in a strength that is not your own. It is to face trials with a peace that surpasses understanding, to endure storms with a confidence that cannot be shaken, to stand firm when everything else crumbles. It is to know that even when the road is difficult, even when the way is unclear, even when the silence is heavy, you are never truly alone. The world may not understand, but it does not need to. The applause of men is fleeting, their approval is temporary. But the presence of God is eternal. The path may be narrow, but it is sure. The road may be long, but it is leading somewhere. And though the journey may be walked alone, it is never truly lonely. For in every step, in every breath, in every moment, the presence of the divine walks with you, guiding, strengthening, sustaining. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. The journey of walking alone with God is not one of isolation, but of intimacy. It is the kind of companionship that does not rely on words, but is felt in the stillness, in the quiet exchanges between heart and spirit. It is not a path filled with the applause of men, nor is it lined with the approval of the world. Instead, it is a road that stretches beyond the reach of human understanding, a path where faith walks ahead of sight, where trust leads before proof, where surrender is not a loss, but a victory. There are seasons when the presence of God feels like fire burning bright, illuminating the path, filling the soul with warmth. In those times, every prayer feels answered, every step feels guided, every moment feels filled with purpose. But then there are seasons where the presence of God feels like a whisper so faint that the ears strain to hear, so soft that it can easily be missed. Those are the moments that test the heart, that refine the spirit, that separate those who seek Him only for what He gives from those who seek Him for who He is. The road is not easy. It demands patience when the world urges haste, endurance when the body craves rest, persistence when doubt presses in. There will be moments of loneliness, moments when the weight of the unseen feels heavy upon the soul, moments when the silence feels like an endless stretch of wilderness. The temptation will be to turn back, to seek the comfort of what is familiar, to fill the quiet with the noise of the world. But the deeper one walks into the presence of God, the more one realizes that the quiet is not empty, it is full. Full of kind of peace that cannot be explained, full of the kind of strength that is not of this world, full of a presence that does not waver even when everything else does. The world moves fast. It rushes forward, chasing success, seeking recognition, striving for achievements that fade as quickly as they are gained. It tells you that to be alone is to be forgotten, that to be unseen is to be insignificant. It measures worth by visibility, by status, by how many voices call your name. But the walk with God is different. It does not rush, it does not clamor for attention. It moves in steady, deliberate steps, not concerned with how the world measures success, but only with how the heart aligns with truth. There will be moments when the weight of obedience feels heavy, when the road ahead feels uncertain, when the steps forward feel too difficult to take. The enemy will whisper that it would be easier to go back, that faith is foolish, that trust is dangerous. He will remind you of all the times you have waited and seen nothing, all the prayers you have prayed and received no answer, all the moments when the silence has felt unbearable. He will try to convince you that walking alone with God is not worth it, that the cost is too high, that the sacrifices are too great. But those who have walked this road before, those whose faith was tested in the fire, those who stood firm when everything around them crumbled, knew one thing to be true: God is faithful. He does not lead where He does not provide. He does not call where He does not sustain. He does not promise where He does not fulfill. To walk alone with God is to walk with an assurance that defies understanding. It is to know that even when the way is unclear, He is guiding. Even when the waiting feels endless, He is working. Even when the silence seems empty, He is present. It is to learn that the wilderness is not a place of abandonment, but a place of preparation, that the waiting is not a delay, but a refining, that the journey is not about reaching a destination, but about becoming the person He has called you to be. There will be trials. There will be days when the journey feels like too much to bear, when the weight of faith feels like a burden instead of a gift. There will be nights when prayers feel like they are met with nothing but silence, when trust feels like it is slipping through weary fingers, when faith feels more like a fight than a foundation. But it is in those moments that faith is truly built, that trust is truly deepened, that endurance is truly forged. The world may not understand why you walk this road. They may question why you choose to trust when there is no evidence, why you choose to believe when there is no proof. why you choose to surrender when there is no visible reward. They will try to convince you that you are missing out, that you are walking away from everything that matters, that you are choosing a path of loneliness and loss. But what they do not understand is that the closer you walk with God, the less you need from the world. The deeper you step into His presence, the quieter the voices of doubt become. The more you trust, the more you realize that nothing the world offers can compare to the peace, the strength, the certainty found in Him. There is a power in walking alone with God, a strength that does not come from within but from the one who sustains. It is a journey that does not promise ease but promises purpose. It does not guarantee comfort but guarantees transformation. It does not ensure that the path will always be clear, but it assures that every step will be guided. The road may be long. The journey may stretch beyond what the eyes can see. The silence may linger longer than expected. But in every step, in every breath, in every moment of waiting, one truth remains: those who walk with God never truly walk alone. There is a mystery to this walk, a depth that cannot be measured, a richness that cannot be explained. It is not simply the act of moving forward, but the transformation that takes place along the way. The world sees distance, miles stretched across the horizon, but the soul knows that this journey is not about geography, it is about surrender. It is about stepping away from what is fleeting and walking toward what is eternal. It is about laying down the need for approval, the hunger for recognition, the desire to be understood, and choosing instead to walk in quiet obedience, to be unseen by the world but fully known by the one who matters most. There is a solitude to this journey, a separation that feels unfamiliar at first. It is the pulling away from distractions, the stripping away of noise, the shedding of all that once seemed important. It is the realization that everything you once clung to for security is no longer necessary, that the validation of others is not required, that the path ahead is not determined by human opinion but by divine direction. It is the kind of solitude that does not breed loneliness but brings clarity, the kind that does not create emptiness but makes room for fullness. There will be moments when the cost of this journey feels high, when the weight of obedience presses heavy against the heart, when the temptation to seek an easier road whispers in the silence. The world will continue moving at its relentless pace, calling you to return, urging you to chase after what it values. But there is a resolve that must be found, a determination that must take root, a faith that must anchor deep. For those who walk alone with God, walk not by sight but by trust, not by certainty but by promise, not by the fleeting affirmations of men, but by the eternal assurance of the divine. Faith is not a feeling, nor is it an emotion that wavers with the winds of circumstance. It is a choice, a decision to trust when there is no evidence, to believe when there is no proof, to hold fast when everything around you says to let go. It is the kind of faith that does not demand answers but rests in the knowledge that the one who leads cannot fail. It is the kind of trust that is not shaken by silence but strengthened by it, that is not diminished by waiting but refined in it, that is not dependent on what is seen but on what is promised. The journey will require more than mere endurance, it will require transformation. It will call for a shifting of desires, a renewing of the mind, a reshaping of the heart. The things that once seemed important will lose their grip. The fears that once held power will begin to fade. The burdens that once felt unbearable will be lifted. It is in the walking, in the daily surrender, in the quiet moments of trust, that change happens not suddenly, not all at once, but little by little, step by step. The world teaches that strength is found in independence, in the ability to stand alone, in the refusal to rely on anything beyond oneself. But the kind of strength that sustains this journey is not found in self-sufficiency, it is found in dependence. It is found in the willingness to admit need, in the surrender of control, in the recognition that to walk alone with God is not truly to walk alone at all. It is to walk in a power that is not of this world, to be carried when strength fails, to be led when direction is unclear, to be upheld when the weight becomes too much to bear. The journey is not without opposition. There will be voices that question, doubts that arise, challenges that threaten to turn the heart away. There will be times when the road ahead feels uncertain, when the familiar calls back, when the unknown feels too vast to step into. But there is a certainty that goes beyond circumstance, a peace that is not dependent on understanding, a confidence that is not rooted in outcomes, but in the one who walks beside you. The world defines success by visibility, by recognition, by the approval of others. It tells you that to be unseen is to be insignificant, that to walk a path alone is to walk a path in vain. But true success is not found in being known by the world, it is found in being known by God. It is not measured by achievements, but by obedience, not by how far one goes, but by how closely one walks. It is found in the quiet faithfulness of daily surrender, in the unseen moments of trust, in the willingness to keep walking even when the destination is not clear. There will be moments of struggle, moments when the weight of this journey feels too heavy, when the silence feels too vast, when the waiting feels unending. There will be times when the prayers seem to go unanswered, when the direction feels uncertain, when the presence of God feels distant. But faith is not about feeling, it is about knowing. Knowing that even in the silence, He is near. Knowing that even in the waiting, He is working. Knowing that even when the path is unclear, He is guiding. To walk alone with God is to live in a reality that is not defined by what is seen, but by what is eternal. It is to move forward even when there is no visible road ahead, to trust even when there are no guarantees, to stand firm even when everything else shifts. It is to find joy not in circumstances but in presence, peace not in answers but in trust, purpose not in achievements but in obedience. The world may not understand this walk, may not see its value, may not recognize its worth. But those who have walked this path before, those who have chosen the narrow road, those who have given up everything for the sake of knowing Him, will tell you this: there is no greater journey. There is no higher calling. There is no richer reward. It is not an easy road, but it is the only road worth taking. It does not promise comfort, but it promises peace. It does not guarantee understanding, but it guarantees presence. And in the end, when all else fades, when the applause of the world has gone silent, when the distractions have lost their pull, the only thing that will remain is this: those who walk with God never walk in vain. The journey continues, winding through valleys of uncertainty and over mountains of trials, but the presence of God remains constant. It is not a journey of ease, nor is it one of worldly acclaim, but it is a journey of purpose, refinement, and unwavering companionship. Each step forward, each moment of trust, each silent surrender strengthens the bond between the soul and the divine. There is no greater privilege than to walk in the presence of the one who sees all, knows all, and ordains every step with wisdom beyond human comprehension. There will be moments when the weight of obedience presses hard against the heart, when the path ahead is veiled in mist, when the silence of waiting stretches into days and nights without end. The soul will cry out for answers, for signs, for reassurance that it is not walking in vain. And yet, it is in these moments of uncertainty that faith is forged in fire. It is in the pressing, in the stretching, in the unseen battles of the Spirit that true strength is cultivated. The walk with God is not about seeing every step ahead, but about trusting the one who leads. It is about releasing control, relinquishing the need for constant validation, and stepping forward with nothing but faith as a guide. The world will offer distractions, paths that seem easier, voices that promise comfort and approval. It will whisper that isolation is failure, that to walk without the applause of men is to walk in obscurity. But there is a depth of knowing that comes only in solitude, a revelation that can only be found in the stillness. The voice of God does not compete with the noise of the world. It speaks in the quiet, in the moments when the heart is fully surrendered, in the spaces where there's no one else to impress, no stage to stand upon, no audience to perform for. To walk alone with God is to embrace a different rhythm, one that does not rush toward results but rests in process. It is to learn that growth does not always come in visible ways, that transformation often takes place in hidden places, that the greatest battles are fought in silence before they are ever seen in victory. It is to trust that even in the waiting, something sacred is being built, that even in the stillness, purpose is unfolding, that even in the moments of doubt, God is closer than breath itself. The human heart craves assurance, craves the tangible, craves the certainty of what is seen. But faith does not operate by sight. Faith moves in the unseen, rests in the unknown, holds fast to the eternal. It is the kind of faith that is not shaken by delay, that is not discouraged by silence, that does not require understanding to remain steadfast. It is the kind of faith that walks forward even when there is no proof, that believes even when there is no evidence, that trusts not in outcomes but in the character of the one who calls. There is a breaking that takes place along this journey, a breaking of self-reliance, a breaking of pride, a breaking of the need for control. It is not a breaking meant to destroy, but one meant to rebuild, to reshape, to mold the heart into something that is no longer bound by fear, no longer controlled by opinion, no longer shackled by the weight of human expectations. It is the kind of breaking that leads to freedom, the kind that removes the chains of what is temporary and replaces them with the lightness of what is eternal. There will be losses along the way, losses of relationships that were never meant to last, losses of desires that once seemed important, losses of dreams that were built on faulty foundations. But what is lost in this journey is nothing compared to what is gained. For what is gained cannot be measured in earthly terms. It cannot be stored in bank accounts, displayed in achievements, or counted in numbers. It is a gain that is eternal, a gain that fills the soul in ways nothing else ever could, a gain that cannot be taken away by time, circumstance, or the opinions of men. The road may feel narrow, but it is not empty. Those who walk alone with God are never truly alone. They walk with a presence that never leaves, a strength that never fails, a love that never wavers. They walk with the assurance that though the world may not understand, though the path may not be celebrated, though the journey may not be easy, it is worth it. Every step of obedience, every act of surrender, every moment of trust is building something greater than the eye can see, something more lasting than anything this world can offer. The voices of the world will rise and fall. Opinions will shift like the wind. Circumstances will change without warning. But the presence of God remains constant. His voice remains steady. His love remains unshaken. Those who choose to walk with Him, to trust Him, to follow Him even when the road is unclear, will find a security that is unbreakable. They will find a peace that cannot be explained, a strength that cannot be taken, a joy that is not dependent on what is seen, but on what is known. The journey is not one of perfection. There will be missteps, moments of doubt, moments of fear. There will be days when the weight feels too heavy, when the silence feels too vast, when the waiting feels unbearable. But those who stay the course, who refuse to turn back, who continue walking even when they do not understand, will find that God is faithful. He is not a distant observer. He is an ever-present guide. He does not lead where He does not sustain, does not call where He does not equip, does not promise where He does not fulfill. The road may be long, the journey may be hard, but the destination is worth every sacrifice. There is a joy that comes with this walk, a joy that is not dependent on circumstances, a joy that is not shaken by trials, a joy that is rooted in something deeper than this world can offer. It is the joy of knowing that every step is guided, every moment is held, every prayer is heard. It is the joy of knowing that even in the unseen, something sacred is unfolding, that even in the waiting, purpose is being fulfilled, that even in the moments of doubt, faith is growing stronger. To walk alone with God is to live a life that is not dictated by fear, but by faith. It is to choose trust over worry, peace over anxiety, purpose over fleeting pleasures. It is to embrace the unknown, to step into the unseen, to surrender fully to the one who holds all things together. It is not a walk of weakness, but of strength, not a journey of loss, but of gain, not a path of emptiness, but of fullness. The world will always call in the distance, offering temporary comforts, false securities, fleeting pleasures. It will always present an easier road, a more popular path, a route lined with applause and approval. But the ones who choose to walk with God, who choose to stay the course, who choose to trust even when the way is unclear, will find a reward that is greater than anything this world can offer. They will find a love that does not fade, a purpose that does not waver, a strength that does not fail. There is no greater journey than this one, no higher calling than to walk with the Creator, no richer reward than to know Him fully. And though the road may be lonely, though the path may be difficult, though the world may not understand, there is one truth that remains unshaken: those who walk with God never walk in vain. The journey of walking alone with God is not about isolation, but about intimacy. It is not about being unseen by the world, but about being fully known by the one who matters most. It is a path that demands faith, trust, and surrender, a road that may not always be easy, but is always worth it. Each step forward is an act of obedience, a declaration that the temporary cannot compare to the eternal, that the unseen is more real than what is visible. There will be trials, moments of uncertainty, times when the weight feels unbearable. But in those moments, His presence will sustain, His strength will uphold, His love will never fail. The world may not understand, may not celebrate, may not validate this walk, but it is not the world's approval that matters. It is the assurance that every step taken in obedience brings one closer to the heart of God. This journey is not about where it leads, but about who walks beside you. It is not about comfort, but about purpose. It is not about applause, but about faithfulness. And in the end, those who walk with God will find that they were never truly alone.